Are you a startup founder looking to make a splash in the media? Want to know how to craft a press release that truly stands out of the competition? Well, you are in luck. In this episode, we dive deep into art of press releases for startups and reveal the best tips and strategies to get the most out of them. Robin WAUTERS, a founder of Tech.eu, a true powerhouse in the tech industry and a journalist with the years of experience. Robin has witnessed countless press releases in action and knows exactly what it takes to captivate journalists and grab their attention. So if you're ready to unleash the potential of press releases and accelerate your startup success, this is an episode you can't afford to miss. Get your notepads ready and let's dive in. Let me start with a short story how it maybe had a first touch with the PR. So I was I think 21 years old, and previously I had a company for dog hygiene products that were suitable for humans and for pets. And then we knew that we kind of need to have a PR stunt or something, and we haven't got like any budget, like anything, like euro was quite a lot for us. So we decided to tell the story. And we reached out to pretty much all media outlets and no one basically answered us. And we kind of were, okay, probably we did something wrong. But then eventually we switched a few times our kind of angles. And then I've got a call from Daily Mail. And they called me and asked, can you tell a story? And the story was that really dogs were very important in my life. When I had a depression, I was going to dog shelters, just talking with them, walking with them, and eventually the problem what I saw with the hygiene products for dogs led me to create a startup. But no one answered, for example, from our country. And only when the Daily Mail published, our article, then a lot of PR companies began to call me, can you tell me a story? Can we invite you to have a, TV show and so on? And it's quite complicated when you kind of feel frustrated even at the beginning. So my question would be, why PR is important for startups or the companies? Should we even do it? Should we even put a lot of energy to this? And maybe when we should start?
These are all great questions. Actually, I sometimes do workshops for startups on how to deal with PR, like from a journalist perspective. Because a lot of the PR agencies or internal PR people will give that kind of training, but you almost never hear from a journalist perspective. So it's a good question to ask. What I always say to any startup founder is that PR is a very long-term commitment. It's a long-term effort. It's called relations for a reason. You don't build relationships in one day. So take your time to develop it. But I also tell them to do it themselves. This is one of my messages always to founders, you're the best at your own PR, and that's always going to be the case. You're the most passionate, the most knowledgeable about your product and your service, what you're trying to achieve. So you should be the one to communicate this. Until, of course, you get to a certain point where it's not physically or humanly possible anymore to manage it yourself. And then you should hire the best people you can find and pay them very well, because it's very important.
Yeah. And I think it's pretty much for all of the stuff when you're in the startup world. Founders play, I think, the most important role, especially in the first years or the second year as well, till they reach the some type of
That's
growth.
True. Although I will say, especially in tech, in tech startups, you have a lot of founders that come with a technical background. They're engineers or developers, or they have a business degree or whatever. Most of them are very, very bad at PR and marketing, especially in the beginning. But these are skills that you can develop. So I always tell founders, there's so many resources available online for free to learn things like storytelling and marketing and how to, package something in a communication that works and how to do social media and whatnot. And I find these are skills that you have to learn as a founder, because it's also a skill that you can use to get investment or to get clients or to recruit, or storytelling is going to help you a lot in your journey anyway.
For sure.
Might as well learn.
Wow. Well, what about the first steps? For example, is it possible to get a PR done if you do not have a budget for it?
Yes, absolutely the case. I think your story actually proves it, that you don't necessarily need a massive budget. But the reality is, for every journalist, there's 1,000, 2,000, maybe even more startup founders or companies trying to get their attention on a daily basis. So you're always going to fight against people and companies that you've never heard of, but they're also trying to get the attention of the journalists and the media companies in question. So it's difficult. It's extremely difficult. And it doesn't mean that if you pay PR agencies or you pay for a campaign, that it's going to be the most effective way to spend that money. So it's always a balance, right? So, but again, it's a long-term play. So you can't spend all your money all at once. You have to sort of test and see what works, and then allocate some budget here and there until you see what sticks or what resonates. And that doesn't necessarily mean only with the journalists, but also with their audience. Like, what are they interested in? And that's also a way to get journalists to be interested. So you don't necessarily need to spend a lot of money, but there's a lot of competition in any case, whether you spend it or not.
And what about the, like, how many emails do you receive like each day? Do you open all of them, or it's like
I make a point out of opening all my emails, and then I put my answers in draft, and then I don't get back to people. So it's the worst emails of that. Do not advise to follow this strategy at all. But I mean, I do get a lot of emails. I look at them because it's easy to miss something. So I'm paranoid about missing something that's relevant. So I do scan a lot. But that's also the reason why your subject line, your first paragraph needs to be convincing. It needs to be personal. It needs to tell a story already, or at least a teaser of what's coming, because it's very, very difficult to grab someone's attention with an email.
That actually was my second question. No, it's fine. It's good that we have a flow, So how to craft a story, because I remember myself like rewriting the story so many times, and the story itself is hard, and then the email pitch, it's even more complicated. So maybe you have any like tips and tricks or the vital things that you must do when you craft the story?
I guess it depends a lot on what your business actually is. It's easier if you do B2C, like for example, if you do pet food or dog hygiene. It's easier to communicate to people what that means, because they might have a pet, or they at least know someone who knows a pet. Everyone does. If you're selling a B2B cybersecurity software suite for Fortune 500 companies, that's not sexy, and it doesn't really...
It doesn't sound very...
No.
It's boring.
It is boring. It's absolutely boring. But that means that you can target niche publications that only write about this stuff and craft your story in a slightly different way than everyone else and still get attention. So it sort of depends where you're coming from. But there's some, I guess, guidelines that you can make it personal, make it authentic. Don't lie about your story. I mean, it has to be a real story. I always like personal anecdotes. Like if, for example, you're scratching your own itch because you've had a problem in your daily life or in your career, or someone in your family, or there was, sort of, a medical situation from a family member that, jump-started your company in the medical space, where, just like an angle that someone can sort of get the human element of the story out of.
And what about the pitch, So you craft the story, you write it down, you put a lot of probably like pictures, visuals that maybe also grab attention of the journalist. But how to craft then an email? You need to grab it in a few first words, probably. Maybe there would be any secret sauce how to make it more successful.
Yeah, there's no secret sauce. There's some tips and tricks, I guess. I wish there was like a silver bullet and then it will work for everyone, but it doesn't. But the reality is, like, you have very little space and time to get attention, so please make it personal. Don't say hi publication or hi first name. Just say, hey, I've been following you on Twitter, interesting stuff, or the article you wrote about this was really interesting. Here's my perspective. So make it personal, make it something, play to our ego as well, I guess.
But it's a personal, everyone likes
we're human beings,
so journalists are the same.
Exactly. So if you comment it from a personal perspective and you show that you know us, or you know our work, or you know the publication that we write for, you already have a step ahead of everyone else, right? And then I guess the tricky part is how long do you make the emails, because it's easy to make them too long, but it's also easy to make them too short. You want to have as much information in there that's relevant for a journalist to at least grab their attention, so they can start asking questions about it. You don't want to waste their time, so you don't want to put everything in one email, but you need to sort of find a balance between this is enough information, this is too much.
Yeah. And how should you look for the journalist? I think I made a lot of mistakes by sending the story to pretty much everyone, Then I understood, okay, so probably I need to filter down, find a journalist that maybe are interested into, it doesn't matter the pet food, but maybe some type of health and wellness fields and so on, women in tech fields or whatever. So how should we look, for the right journalists? Or maybe we just need to send it to everyone.
Never send it just to anyone, like mass email info@wallstreetjournal.com. That's probably not going to work out for you. But at the end of the day, it's also quite difficult, because especially if you're a first-time founder in the startup space, like you don't have those relationships. You don't know me. You've never met me at a conference. You maybe get my attention at an event. That's not the best way to get. But at the very least, you can follow people's work, and you can read about their lives on social media, and you sort of get a feel for who they are. And then it depends. Like if you're in a niche, it gets easier. You only have, 5 to 20 journalists that really write about your space. If it's something that's really global, like pet food, for example, there's so many options. That doesn't make it easier, because then you have to, it gets a lot harder to select the right ones. So you have to do your homework, essentially. Like, what is the right audience that we want to target? And then think, which publications are targeting the audience that I want to reach? And then at those publications, which are the journalists that are covering the beat that I kind of want to be associated with, whether that's lifestyle or business or politics.
So it's more like a marketing funnel, You have the top of the funnel, the whole journalist, and then you kind of trying to go to the middle of the funnel and just filter down.
There's a reason PR and marketing get lumped together a lot, because the funnels are similar. But I do find the end goal is different a little bit, because if you're looking to do actual PR means public relations, means like building goodwill over time, meaning crafting a narrative around your story that gets picked up, and it's a long-term thing. Marketing usually short-term. You have a call to action, you want to sell something, you want to do, get people to do something. It's a little bit of a different way, but they get lumped together quite often.
And just, to give a better understanding, how long does it usually take, the PR? If I decided that, okay, I need to work on a PR, how long it usually takes?
It depends. It's the boring answer. But the reality, like I always tell people, if you're doing a startup, your attention should be on your product and your customers and serving their needs and finding the right market. That should be your focus, right? So don't go looking for PR from day one. It's not going to work. So do focus on your business first and foremost.
Sure.
Once you have a track record and traction and it's starting to evolve, then you can sort of craft a narrative around it and start looking for PR. That's usually 2-3 years in already, right? I don't think it moves the needle if you have publicity early on, because you might disappoint people because your product is not ready yet, because it's not fit for market yet. So I do say, like, focus on customers' product first. PR always second.
And probably it's also related to how strong the message you have. If you're just gonna launch the PR at the beginning, you can tell the story, but maybe you don't have any tangible results.
Exactly.
The testimonials, the numbers, or something that really can help, for the people to trust you, what you do.
That's a really good point, because journalists like numbers, we like just tangible things, right? Something that we at least can compare to your competitors or the market in general, or okay, you've had 50% growth, there must be something there. But if you don't have those numbers yet, then what are you going to sell? Just the story. And then again, it's so competitive, so with the story alone, you're not going to usually get the attention you need.
I remember that once I found the Huffington Post.
Do you mind if I...
Sure. I once found a really nice Huffington Post journalist, and she most of the time covered the pet, not only pet food, but pet tech, the stories, and so on. And I followed her on Instagram. And I understood that I cannot just say, okay, let's talk and write a story about me. So I decided just to follow her work. I looked through all of her articles, read all of them, and then after few months, I reached out to her, saying, "Hi, I read this and this article. I think this, what you emphasize, is really interesting for me personally, and I think what we suggest is this and that, and we reach this and that, and I think that would be a relevant story to you, and that's how we basically get, you know, the article. So sometimes, even though I was questioning myself, is it not too personal to reach out through Instagram messages, because, you know, it's kind of more personal than an email, but maybe now the boundaries are kind of,
and at the end of the day, if they have a public profile, that means they don't care about being approached in a public way, right?
Well, true. Yeah. Probably the same as like Twitter, Facebook, I'm not sure. Maybe it's not that relevant anymore.
It used to be, but yeah, no, I get pitched in emails and Twitter and WhatsApp and you name it, and I don't mind either way. Like, I don't really care. But it's, I will say one thing, like, because we're at an event now, we're at Tech.eu here in Riga. People would come up to me, founders, and they would say, hey, this is my product, here, I show you the app, and do you want to write about my startup? And I'm like, that never works. It just never does, unless, you know, it's something so cool and so amazing that, but the chances are very low. But if you and I meet at the sort of a speaker dinner, and we're on stage together, or we develop a relation another way, and a year from now we meet at the same event, say, hey, do you remember me? You know, my startup is now like really getting traction. Would you mind having a look? That's a better way to build relationships. Right?
And that's why it's called relationship, once again.
It is kind of personal, isn't it?
Yeah. And what about, you know, the feeling, or what should you do when you get rejected? You know, should you try push it through more, create a new angle, maybe a different pitch line or something, or maybe you should, you know, just calm down, reflect, should I really have a strong message, you know, and maybe let's run for a couple of months more, and then maybe with the better results approach media.
Great question. First of all, for the founders out there, you're going to get rejected a lot. So rejection is going to be a big part of your world, from investors, from partners, from people you want to work with and they don't want to work with you. Rejection is just a huge part of it. And on the PR side, you're going to be rejected or not even acknowledged, like most of the time, right? So it's tough. But you have to get yourself over it. You have to see, once something works, like, how can we iterate to make it better? If you see that something doesn't work, change the strategy. Push a little bit. There's no, you know, there's no shame in like trying again or just like pinging someone multiple times. But if you can see that you're not getting results, then by all means stop. There's no need to go over the limit. It's a fine line, like how much can you really push? And some journalists and some publications have different standards, I guess. But don't be afraid to keep trying new things all the time. But the core of your message, like the real narrative around your product and service, shouldn't change. Like for most of the big companies that I know, like their message isn't all that different from when they were started than where they are now. And that's because they had like a very well-defined strategy in the beginning. And you know, you change elements about it, but the core should always be there from the beginning.
Yeah, maybe, you know, you decide on your mission from the beginning and then just keep pushing and growing towards that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the mission and the vision should always be sort of the North Star, the end goal for everything that you do. Which means you have to craft your story and your messaging around that.
Yeah.
And not about who you are as a person or the market that you're in. You know, what are you building that makes a difference? Why are you doing this? That's always a good angle. That's a question that I ask when founders pitch me their startups. Why?
Yeah.
Why you? Why this market? Why that product? Why would you make a difference?
Yeah.
And that's you get interesting answers that way.
But that's so interesting. Every podcast I took, it was, you know, with the founders, with the investors, with very interesting sport athletes. They all talking about the same, about why. You know, that you always have to ask yourself, you're a founder, why are you starting this business? You know, if you're an athlete, what are the main reason, the driver behind pushing yourself, you know, through the limits? And the question why is so important.
Yeah,
really.
It is. And you make a good analogy, because athletes and founders, it's a very lonely journey. It always is.
Yeah.
You know, forget social life for a while, forget sleep. It's tough. Like, it's a really lonely, difficult thing to do. So you might as well have a good answer to the question why, because if you don't, then why bother at all?
Yeah. And I think for me personally, why helped me to survive through a really hard times. I'm not gonna lie, for many times I was sitting, you know, on the floor crying, and I asked myself, why I'm doing this? I mean,
aspiring entrepreneurs, there's going to be a lot of that.
Yeah, really, because I think, you know, on a social media, when everyone sees you, the photos with the people attending the conferences, having a picture, whatever, they think, oh my God, I can't wait. I want to be an entrepreneur. But actually, the reality is it's very hard. And those tears are running like super fast. And I really ask myself, why a lot of times. But then you kind of come back to your inner self and you understand that this is what you kind of feel that you have to do.
Exactly.
This is the
like there is no other
cost.
option. Right?
Yeah. You don't have any other, choice even sometimes. So you just have to push yourself as much as you can and go through it. So I believe you also had the same feelings when you were building Tech.eu, because it's a huge media outlet and it took a lot of energy, I believe, from, to build it from scratch. Yeah. What was the hardest lessons that you faced or challenges maybe?
It's a good question to ask. So we started 10 years ago when the European tech ecosystem was still relatively small. Yeah. We could kind of see it was growing, but it was still a gamble. Like a lot of people told me, like, if you only focus on Europe, there's not going to be enough stuff to cover even to make it a viable business. So at the very, very beginning, we had a tough time sort of formulating a business model. And so the most difficult thing that we had to go through is sort of figure out how do we keep a balance between just being another media company and going for traffic and page views and building like an advertising business, or are we stubborn enough to really keep our focus on European tech ecosystem and hopefully it would evolve and mature to a point where we can come back, and that became the case. Yeah. But if we started a year earlier or a year later, things might have been different. So it's also luck, like it's an element of timing that you need to sort of get right. Much energy spent building Tech.eu, but it's also nothing compared to what entrepreneurs do. Like I meet so many startup founders that I don't consider myself one because I see that they give a lot more than I. Like it's a crazy thing to do. At the end of the day, starting a company. Yeah, well, it's kind of it's kind of an insane person only that does this. Yeah, sometimes I'm thinking that we are on the borderline, of getting insane and going, okay, that's a fine line. Yeah. So. It's a tough way to go through your life, but I think it's also very interesting. Oh, it's super rewarding, and at the end of the day, you're only here for like a very limited time on a very limited part of the universe. Mm-hmm. So make the most of it. Like if you can do your own thing and you have the ability to do it, because let's acknowledge that not everyone on the planet has just the sheer ability to do something on their own. So if you can, then why not? Like at least ask yourself the question: like, should I try at least? Yeah. What about, I believe that you probably had a lot of, wouldn't say challenges, maybe hard moments by building, Tech.eu. There were a lot of overwhelming maybe experiences. And have you ever got like a down period in your life? When you felt multiple times a day. So what are the things that you tell yourself or you do that helps you to overcome it? I'm asking is because I know it might sound like very personal, but I met so many young people, and I'm 28, and I had those ups and downs, and they were super hard sometimes, and not only like physical but mentally and spiritually even as well. So I always looking for ways how I can help myself, and I do believe that a lot of young entrepreneurs are facing this, and I think you have a lot of experience, so maybe you can share something that helped you in a way. Yeah. I think taking care of your own mental health and physical health is very important. Get enough sleep, have a good diet, etc. I think it's quite obvious, but still a lot of people need to be reminded. Actually, it's not that obvious. I was shocked, but it's not that obvious actually. It should be. And then mental health as well. Like if you need to go to a psychologist or therapy to just get you through that, then by all means do it. They're there to help. I would say also talk to your peers. Don't be afraid. This whole notion of fake it until you make it and hustle and we're killing it and we're crushing it and everything is fine. If you're facing problems, the people in your industry, other founders, will face the same thing. Yeah. So don't be afraid to share best practices on how to deal with them, because it might be different for you than it is for someone else, but maybe they can teach you some things, tips, tricks. So talk. And also what I find, that going back to your core mission, the why, helps a lot in difficult times. And finally, I would say talk to your customers. If you make a difference for someone else, having them tell you that, even if just ask them so that you can hear it. You this whole notion of positive reinforcement. Just ask your customers, like, am I making a difference for you? And if the answer is always no for everyone, then stop and do something else. But if it is, you'll get energy from that, positive energy.
That's actually a great way how to help yourself. I remember the times when you have a lot of self-doubts when you go into the startup world and those ups and downs and so on. And I remember when we've got testimonials, let's call it that way, from our customers when their dog went from cancer-free, or the digestion issues, or the dog said the vet said that you should put him down, and they survived. Those really intense stories. And I remember I was even crying sometimes from those emotions, from joy that you can really help for others.
It's the best feeling in the world, being able to help someone.
For sure. Yeah, and I remember that you just reminded me, because I was kind of forgot about it even. So.
But you have a great story. You were telling earlier, like you were working in shelters to help yourself, essentially.
Yeah.
And then you noticed there was a need, and you developed a product that serves that need. I mean, that's the best kind of entrepreneurial story you can have.
Well, yeah. Well, it's really personal.
Because you didn't look for something, where is there a gap in the market, and I'll do that. It just
Believe
came
me,
naturally.
I've never thought I will be an entrepreneur or business.
Why not though?
I don't know. I've never even thought about it. I thought about the politics, about the PR but I've never thought that I will be a business owner. Never. I haven't even got the intention, to do that.
But is that also because maybe on an education level you don't get stimulated to become an entrepreneur? I find not just in Lithuania, but probably in Europe that's the case. Like, we don't tell people enough, like, you can also do something with your skills and knowledge on your own. It doesn't mean you have to go work for a bank or for a communications agency. You can also build something.
Yeah, and I think it's very important, because yesterday with our colleagues, we've been into Tech.eu event, and we see so many young people, like they're in their probably 18, 19, I'm not sure, but they are look very young.
Yeah, imagine how I feel.
Yeah, and we were looking at them and saying, oh my God, what are you doing here? And then I thought, but that's a great thing. I would prefer, when I was 19 or 20, to see the business world and then consider, should I go there, to meet the people very early. And I personally had familiar story, because I really thought that I will be into politics. So I went to work in European Parliament in Brussels. And then after 5 months there, I understood that I'm probably never gonna come back here. It was just...
Well, I hope you don't have anything against Brussels, per se.
No. I just thought that, probably my inner self, I just want to make a difference a bit faster, And this is there are a lot of bureaucracy. And sometimes you're just exchanging the emails about one topic, like 100 emails, and nothing changes. And then I said, probably it's not for my personality. I just need to push something and do a bit, more actively. So it's just because of that. But that was a great thing. When I was 20, I learned this lesson, and I haven't got a dream or illusion how politics really might be, but I just experience it, and then I kind of let it go, So I think it's very nice when young people have a chance to visit the events, to meet other founders, to listen their stories.
There's a great event, Slush, in Helsinki, where they have a lot of volunteers, right? So like 1,000 students from the university. Some of these volunteers end up working for Slush, end up becoming CEO of Slush, end up starting a company and became a unicorn. See, these kind of stories are quite amazing, because you never know, but what if they didn't go to Slush when they were 18? Maybe their life would have taken a completely different direction. So sometimes it's just exposure to other founders or entrepreneurs in general to really light that spark inside of you, like, hey, maybe I can do this too. Maybe I want to do this. Maybe I, not for the money, but not for the fame, because famous you won't get. Well, most of the time.
You probably should go through this phase as well, because when you're young, you're full of enthusiasm, So probably you are considering, I will be a next founder of the unicorn. I will be famous, and everyone will look at me as an example. But
that passes very quickly. I mean, you need to be ambitious.
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
But doing it for the money and the fame sounds like a recipe for disaster, because most people don't get famous. Most people don't make a lot of money. Yeah. But I find that even those who don't become famous or don't make a lot of money still find it very rewarding to build their own thing and to scratch an itch or to solve a problem or to, it's rewarding in itself. Like, you're helping people or companies or organizations achieve something that they couldn't have otherwise.
For sure. And you meet a lot of entrepreneurs, startup owners. very interesting and probably inspiring people. What would you wish, maybe for entrepreneur or the startup owner who only starts their journey? You know, maybe there are tips and tricks, or maybe life learned lessons that you recommend or they need to hear.
Yeah, I do. So I just got off stage and we're talking about climate tech investments, and I asked the investor on stage, a lady, general partner at a fund, so like, do you wish more entrepreneurs would be focused on climate tech and sustainability? She's like 100%, because you know, as we said earlier, it's such a lonely, hard thing to do. If you're going to dedicate all that energy and all that time, do you really want to build another mobile game? Do you want to build something in crypto? Do you really? Or can you put your skills and knowledge and abilities to good use? Good for the planet, good for society, good for humanity. You know, so think about, like, if I'm going to do this anyway, is there a sector that I can really make a difference in? And then I would go for that always. Like, nothing against gaming entrepreneurs or crypto bros or whatever you want to call it. You know, you do what you do, but I mean, have a think about, like, is this putting my skills and time to the best possible use?
Yeah, that's a really great answer. Wow, I even have a lot of thoughts in my head as well.
Well, let them flow through you.
Yeah, so thank you. It was quite a short podcast, but I think we covered so many interesting
That's the longest podcast I've ever done.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, we usually do like 20-25 minutes, so this is great.
Sorry, okay.
No, that means I can talk a lot.